Alright, hello beautiful perception trainers people, and welcome back to a new video. So we're going to be talking about addiction in this video, which is a pretty heavy topic, and I thought, also in kind of line with this, that I wanted to start just being a little bit more personal and personable with you guys, and less just like floating talking head. So I thought I would just start showing you little bits of my life in my videos, as well as having these kind of sit down talks with you about these really heavy concepts. So I just thought, yeah, like let's just make this more like we're just friends hanging out and talking about stuff, rather than me sitting here being teacher to you. So in this video, I thought I would just show you a little bit of where we're living right now, because we travel around the world quite a bit, and I think it can be kind of interesting just to see where people are living and what they're doing and what their life is like. So I just thought I'd give you little glimpses into the daily life of me, I guess. But yeah, you can let me know if that's boring and you don't want to see it and you just want the talking head videos. That's fine too, but I just thought we'd try this out. So today I'm just gonna show you Chiang Mai. So we've been Chiang Mai is pretty much my favorite place in the whole world to be, and this is basically where we live. So if you can see over here, this is the Ping River, and that goes north-south along Chiang Mai. And then we have over here, over there you can see the fruit market. It's called Mung Mai Market, and it's a big kind of bulk produce market, so you can get so many different types of fruit. I'll take you down there next time and show you what it looks like. And then this is the US consulate right here in front of us. And then over there, just over there, you can see that is Chinatown. And then over there, in that general direction, is what they call the square. So Chiang Mai used to have a brick wall all around it, when it was the old city is what they called it, and so that was when Chiang Mai was its own province in this Lana area is what it's called. And then they took the wall down, and now it's basically the tourist area. Alright, and just to show you, this right here is where I do my yoga and meditation in the morning. And really by that, I pretty much just mean that's where I do handstands and then lay around and get bitten by ants for 2 hours. So that's that. Alright, I'm hoping you can see me here and that my head isn't getting cut off. But yeah, so in this video, I really want to talk about addiction, and I want to go deeply into this subject because it is a really intense thing, and it's a very complicated thing, and I feel like in the world that we live in right now, we're not really understanding addiction to the way that we could be understanding addiction. And I feel like the more we can sort of talk about this and come together on this and understand that there's nothing to be ashamed of if we're living with addiction, and again, I really want this video to be more about educating about like how to handle addiction in a way that actually can move us forward. We might be able to find that we don't have to live addicted lives anymore. So to begin, I just want to say that I definitely would consider myself someone who has struggled with addiction, in the sense that like I was never I never did drugs or drank alcohol, but I so addicted in the more classical sense of the word to substance. But I definitely dealt with food addictive tendencies in my youth, and then I would consider anorexia and having the eating disorder an addiction. And then workaholism. I have been someone who has absolutely used my work as a way of numbing and suppressing and running away from life that was just too overwhelming for me, and I would definitely consider that an addiction. So I'm going to start this video right here, right now, with just saying, here's how I define an addiction. Alright? An addiction is anything that we're using to get a need met that this thing that we're using cannot meet. So it is causing us to go into a state of degradation rather than allowing us to expand and grow. That is what an addiction is. We are using something to meet a need that it cannot meet. We're putting something in the box where it doesn't fit. So we are going, right, with having a need, having a want, having a desire that's not being met, but it's being sort of met by this tool that we're using. All right, so the reason we get addicted to something is because it works to satisfy a need or a want or a desire better than anything else we have. This is really the root of addiction. We have wants, we have needs, we have desires. We cannot get rid of these things. This is the first thing we need to understand about ourselves as humanity. We have desires, we have wants, we have needs that must get met in order for us to thrive. Yes? But we have such a low level understanding of what the human being wants, needs, and desires, and a low level understanding of how the universe works so as to get those wants, needs, and desires fulfilled, that we are using coping mechanisms, right, addictions, other methods of getting our needs and wants sort of met in the best way we know how based on our current level of understanding. That is what an addiction is. We're going to something that almost meets a need or a want that we have, that almost scratches the itch, but doesn't quite do it. But, again, it's better than anything else we have, and therefore we keep going back to it because we're not being satisfied, we're not being fulfilled, we're not evolving the way we want to be evolving, we're not really getting the need met. But again, it's better than not having that thing and not getting any amount of satisfaction. Okay? So, for instance, when we look at the addiction of anorexia, for instance, which is something that I have personal experience with, people will say an eating disorder happens because you want control. And I would say, okay, that's such a dramatic oversimplification of what's actually happening. It's not wrong. Yes, wanting control is a part of it, but it's not the whole picture. Okay? Girls and boys who develop anorexia, who use their anorexia as a way of coping with life, it's not simply because they feel out of control. There's so much more to it than that. Okay? But it is absolutely a part of it. So, like I said, in my experience, growing up, you've heard my health story. I was born into a family that diametrically opposed who and what I am as a human being. Okay? The rules of my family were everything has to look good. It doesn't matter what it actually is in real life, as long as it looks good. Don't embarrass me. Don't be too good, because that makes other people feel bad about themselves. Don't be below average, because that makes me look bad. Don't have an emotion. And anything that's going wrong, any pain, any suffering, any struggle, is if we were to admit that that's happening, that's too shameful. That makes me feel too bad, like I'm making too much of a mistake. So we have to believe that it's something wrong with you, or we have to just ignore it. Okay? So that was how I was raised. Where the true reality of me that I understand now is obviously that I want to thrive. I want to be happy and healthy, and that emotions are tools and they're messengers for where we're living out of alignment with truth. And to discover that you're living out of alignment with truth, so this is the big thing that I've discovered as someone who has recovered and is living a recovered life, The biggest thing that I can say is the thing that I've learned is that when you learn that something isn't working, you don't have to feel bad about yourself. That doesn't mean that you're wrong and bad and stupid. It just means you didn't know. And to change and evolve based on new information is true freedom, right? But if we're held in this place of believing that if we figure out that something that we're doing is wrong and bad, or is wrong in the sense that it's not getting us the results that we want, it's not working, it's causing us harm, it's causing other people harm, that doesn't mean we're bad. That doesn't mean we should be ashamed of ourselves. That doesn't mean we're terrible people and therefore we either need to feel this deep sense of shame because there's nothing we can do and we can't change and that just means that we're a horrible person, or reject that, deny that, make it someone else's fault so that I can continue to believe that what I'm doing is right and it's just the reality that's reacting incorrectly. Okay? So, but to kind of back this up a little bit, to have the reason that I developed my eating disorder was so much more complex than just wanting control. Okay? Number one, I was suffering in a life that I didn't understand. Okay? So that's the big thing. I was being traumatized and living in ways that were out of alignment with truth that I did not understand. I did not know how to get myself into alignment with truth. I did not know why what I was doing was out of alignment with truth. I didn't understand how the universe worked. I didn't understand how I worked. And so the suffering that I was in, I had no way of actually getting rid of. Okay? Because again, I want to kind of bring this concept into the field. We suffer when we're living out of alignment with truth. We've said that. But it's a little bit more complex than that. All right? We suffer when we live out of alignment with truth that we are sufficiently complex to live within. All right? So for instance, a lion does not feel guilt for eating an antelope, for murdering another thing for its own food. It doesn't have any remorse about that. I'm sure that if two lions get in a fight and they truly believe, right, they would get in a fight purely because they're thinking this lion is contradicting my survival. If they get in a fight with a lion and they kill that other lion, they're not going to have guilt. They're not going to have shame. There is going to be no emotional repercussion for that lion taking the life of another lion. Why? Because the lion's consciousness is not sufficiently complex to understand the universal principle of oneness. The lion's physicality is not sufficiently complex to thrive from not eating other animals. So therefore, based on its level of complexity, it is living in alignment with its relative capacity to understand universal truth. It is not responsible for understanding unity because it doesn't have the complexity to understand that. And therefore, it does not suffer the consequences of living out of alignment with that truth in the sense that it doesn't feel guilt or shame. Yeah? So that is why we can look at a lion and say it has a different consciousness level than a human being. Because when a human being murders somebody, there's guilt, there's shame, there's an emotional reaction that lets us know this is out of alignment with our relative capacity to understand how the universe works. We have the complexity to understand unity, to understand that when I take the life of someone else, I'm cutting myself off. That there is no true separation between me and this other person. When I take their life, I take my own because we are connected. We are one. They are just as much me as I am them and as I am me. So when it's kind of like saying I'm gonna murder my liver to save my kidney. No, you're not. It's all one unit. It all works in tandem. Every piece of the puzzle is necessary. Every component part is needed. So when I hurt the liver to save the kidney, I actually hurt the kidney. It doesn't actually help the kidney to sacrifice the liver. And this is how it is in humanity. We are all a unit. We need each other. We're interdependent. We're all a part of the one body. And we have the complexity to understand that. So when we act out of alignment with that truth, we suffer. You see? So we suffer when we act out of alignment with that which we are sufficiently complex to live in alignment with. There are many things about universal truth, I'm sure, that the human being does not have the complexity to understand. That we don't know. We don't have the perceptual tools to even be aware of. And therefore we don't feel guilt when we live out of alignment with those rules. You see? There's far more universal truth that expands far beyond what the human being could comprehend. And therefore we're just not aware of it. We don't have an emotional guidance system that tells us we've lived out of alignment with that law because we couldn't possibly live in alignment with it. Because we're not complex enough. We're not aware. So the human species has become far more complex and has been exposed to huge and vast amounts of information since our time as primitive tribes that have evolved us to understanding much higher levels of truth than our primitive ancestors could understand. Okay? Again, when we look at primitive cultures that still exist today, they're eating natural foods, they're living off the land, they're living with these idealistic, perfect, natural lifestyles, and they're still dying in their 40s and 50s. The average lifespan of an indigenous culture is 40 and 50 years old. Why aren't they living longer if they're living these natural lives? Right? We're blaming all the toxins and the food and the unnatural ways of living on the thing that's killing us, but we're still living longer. Why? Yes, medical intervention, but again, that's an expansion of consciousness. Mostly because our awareness has been dramatically expanded since we left the jungle. And therefore, we have been exposed to far higher levels of complex information that we simply don't understand. But we have the responsibility now, because we've been exposed and we're sufficiently complex to be able to understand it, that we're responsible for it now. So what we're really seeing is that the human being right now, pretty much every human being is addicted to something. In the sense that we are feeling unsatisfied. We are suffering. We have things that hurt within us. We have ways of being and ways of living that are destroying ourselves and destroying other people that we don't understand. We have the emotional reaction. We have the physical reaction of something's out of alignment, right? Degradation, negative emotion, getting sick, all of these things. And rather than saying, okay, why is this happening? What is the complex view of the world that I need to understand in order to understand why this degradation is happening, why this suffering is happening, why this sickness is happening? Because everything is happening for a reason. Okay? That doesn't mean that everything should keep happening the way that it's happening. Okay? To say that something is happening for a reason simply means everything is an effect of a cause. Nothing is happening for no reason. Nothing is happening randomly. Nothing is happening that shouldn't be happening, in the sense that nothing is happening based on nothing. Okay? People are abusive, people get sick, people do what they do for a reason. There's always a story behind what's happened that makes what's happening make sense. Okay? So that's the first key. We're suffering because we're living out of alignment with a truth that we're complex enough to understand, that we don't yet understand. So when things that are traumatizing happen to the human being, traumatizing being something happens that doesn't align with our current level of understanding. We do something, expect this result happens. This means the universe is more complex than we thought. It doesn't work how we thought it should. It doesn't work how we think it does. We need to become more complex to understand why what I just did resulted in this effect rather than the effect I expected. That is learning. That is evolution. That is processing and liberation. When we become aware that our current level of understanding isn't the true reality, we suffer. That's what suffering is. We have pain. Pain is simply us becoming aware of how we thought the world worked, how we thought life was, being different than how life actually is. Okay? It's more complex than we thought. It works different than we thought, which means we are being called to grow. But for most of us, we go into trauma instead, where we say, the thing that I wanted to happen, or whatever happened to me that I don't understand, means that life is wrong and going wrong, and I have to reject it and deny it and try to force it into being what I want it to be, force life into my box. Or I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing over and over again, expecting it to work because I'm right. Yes, so that's forcing it into my box. Or we say, oh my gosh, I could never know, I don't understand, and we give up and we just claim that we could never know, and we're just going to suffer forever. Those are our two ways of adapting right now. Okay? And so with that suffering and with that pain, we as human beings don't want to suffer and be in pain all the time. That's like the innate need of the human being. We want to be happy. We want to experience joy. We want to experience pleasure. And the true roots of joy and pleasure are simply evolution. Like truly, that is as much as we can boil it down. When we are taking in the information of the reality, when we're trying things, it doesn't work how we thought it should, we learn how it actually works. What happens there is then we can then create what we want to create. We can do what we want to do. We can create our desires and get our needs met because we understand ourselves and we understand reality in the actual complexity that actually exists, and therefore we can get our needs met. That's how we get our needs met. Okay? When we have a need and we go, this is where desire comes from, right? So if you haven't watched my video on desire, I recommend that you go and do that. Desire is the thing that is our impetus to evolve. It's our impetus to go and say, okay, I want this thing that I've never had before. I'm going to go out and try and make that happen. I'm going to do it from where my current level of the understanding of how the universe works. I'm going to attempt to create it. When it doesn't work, if you're truly wanting to be a masterful creator, what you say is, okay, it didn't work. Why? What is the actual complexity of the reality that I need to understand in order to create what I want to create? So I gave the example of flying, human beings flying. So if our first attempt at flying was jumping off a cliff and flapping our arms, we realized that didn't work. Again, we could easily say, okay, well, humans can't fly, because that's how birds fly, that's how I thought it should work. It didn't work that way, and therefore it's not possible. Or we keep jumping off the cliff expecting ourselves to be able to fly at one point because we think, no, I'm right. I watched the birds fly. That's how it's supposed to happen. When the reality is what? No. We needed to understand aerodynamics, gravity, all of these very complex theories and actual realities about how the reality actually functions in order to create an airplane so that humans could take flight. The reason we couldn't fly before is because we were not sufficiently complex. We did not understand the reality enough to create what we wanted to create. But that didn't mean that what we wanted to create was impossible. Not at all. We just had to become more complex. So every desire that we have, when people say you can't have a desire for no reason, this is true. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're supposed to get the desire met in the exact way that you think you're going to get it met. But that desire is prompting you to go out and try to get that desire met so that you can understand something about the universe you don't understand right now. You can become more complex and then evolve based on that complex understanding into something new where you can create. So this is what being a powerful creator is. It's having a desire, knowing you can get it done, and if you go and attempt to get it done and you don't get it done, you learn something new about the reality which makes you understand the reality more, which then therefore eventually leads you to being able to create what you want to create. Okay, that's true happiness. That's evolution. When we are suffering, we are being called to evolve. We are being called to understand why we are suffering, what we are doing that is out of alignment with truth, that we are capable of understanding but have not yet understood, and how we need to live in order to align with that truth so that we are sufficiently complex, aligning with the universal truth that we are capable of understanding, and therefore living in alignment and not suffering. Okay? But what most of us do is, again, we have these experiences that don't make sense to us. We get abused, we get hurt, we fall down, these things happen. We have desires we try to get met that we can't figure out how to get them met. And in a lot of ways, even more than this, right? We are trained in this culture that a lot of the things that we want, a lot of the things that we are, a lot of the things we want to grow into, a lot of the things we want to express, a lot of the things we want to experience are not okay. They're not allowed. You're not allowed to be that way. You're not allowed to have that want. You're not allowed to have that need. Having that want and having that need makes you wrong, bad, and evil. So what are we going to do? Right? Because we can't get rid of a want or a need. It's not going to go anywhere. What we do is we develop an addiction. We get addicted to something that helps us pseudo meet the need that we can't get rid of. Okay, so this is where something like anorexia can come in. So like I say, I was suffering in many ways as a child. First off, living in Calgary in the middle of winter, in an oil city, trying to work a normal 9 to 5, blah, 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 blah. So much of that was out of alignment with my relative truth of who I am and what I came here to do. So I was suffering. Second thing, I had a lot of crazy beliefs about myself and about the world and what my job here was that were causing me to live in more subtle ways out of alignment with truth. So like how I interacted with people, what I thought my role in relationships was, who I thought I needed to be to receive love and to give love was out of alignment. And then of course, my body was totally out of alignment. It was sick, it was weak, it was the foods that I was eating and the things that I was doing and the things that I was putting into my consciousness were out of alignment with my level of complexity. So I had all these things that were totally out of alignment with truth, which is a lot. That's really overwhelming. And then the last thing is everything that I wanted to do, everything that was innate and natural to me, essentially I had been trained my whole life that made me wrong and bad and evil. So I was trying to get rid of literally every natural instinct that I had. I was trying to get rid of all my wants and all my needs. So in order to do that, you need something pretty strong and pretty powerful to essentially work as a dual thing. Okay, so our addictions are always going to be more than one, serving more than one function. Okay, so number one, anorexia gave me a feeling of control where I felt out of control in the rest of my life. So when people say anorexia is a control thing, yes, and every addiction is a control thing. It gives you a sense of being able to control your reality, control your mood, control your feeling when you're feeling so shitty and don't have any other way of controlling it. So alcoholics are drinking partially because they want control. Drug addicts are taking drugs partially because they want control. Food addicts are eating because they partially want control. We're addicted to our work, we're addicted to shitty relationships, we're addicted to spending money, whatever it is that we're addicted to, our coping mechanism, because we want control. We want control over how we feel. We want to feel like we have the power to shift our own lives. Okay? So even if it is drinking and then giving yourself this idea that, okay, this is the last weekend I'm ever going to drink. This is the last weekend I'm ever going to do drugs. I'm starting the diet on Monday. This gives you a sense of hope and of control over your shitty circumstances that you have no other way of remedying for yourself. So it gives you a sense of hope and control that when I get over this addiction, when I'm done with this, when I've gone to rehab, when I'm finally thin, when I finally lost the weight, whenever it is that I'm addicted to in this moment, it's giving you a sense of when this is fixed, I'm gonna feel better. And also, it makes me feel better right now in the moments when I'm in control of it. When I'm at the bar drinking, I feel in control of my life. I made this choice. I'm here. I'm doing this. I'm taking the drugs. I'm surrendering. I'm letting go of this person I think I need to be, and I'm allowed to just be whatever I want. I'm allowed to be my real self, to say and do these random wild things. Yeah? There's this sense of control. There's a sense of escape, right? It's taking you out of your pain for a period of time. It numbs you or it stimulates you. That's why we can get addicted to work, because you can get addicted to this feeling of being useful, addicted to this feeling of productivity, addicted to this feeling of creating something, right? Where we're supposed to be feeling like that everywhere in our lives, but when we don't feel like that anywhere except for our work, of course we want to get rid of all the other areas of our life and just focus more and more on work, where we're feeling that sense of alignment, that we are creating something, we're doing something, we're building something, we're having an impact. You see? So there's a sense of getting this need for expansion and change met. Okay? And that's the other thing. An addiction is always going to be a cycle. There's always going to be the high and the low, the drunk, the come down, the rehab, the going back, the binge, the diet. Why? Because naturally we have a need for change, evolution, expansion. But when we're not learning from the reality, we're not actually allowing ourselves to evolve, grow, change, and expand, we are going to create a kind of pseudo growth and expansion, a pseudo amount of change in our addiction. It's going to be a crazy 8 cycle, what Tony Robbins calls it. There's always going to be swinging from one extreme to the other, because it gives us this feeling of change that we need and want as human beings, but it's not really it. Okay? The next thing is it gives us a sense, so we have this sense of control, we have a sense, it gives us a sense of checking out, of letting go, of release, numbing, stimulation. It gives us a sense of change, growth, expansion. Yeah? So we can start to see our addictions are meeting our needs. And then the last thing is, yeah, it's going to be a way that you are expressing your individuality in the only way you know how to right now. That's going to be the last reason you're addicted to whatever you're addicted to. It's the only outlet you have for expressing something that is true about you in the most expressive way you can. And then this is what we call the shadow. Okay, so what was true about me is I was supposed to eat different. I was supposed to live a different life. I was supposed to take control of my health. That was a true thing about me. Anorexia was simply a shadowed form, a much less complex form of expressing that innateness about me in the only way I could at the time. Okay, so I was never meant to eat normal. My body was never going to be normal. And that's good. And that's awesome when it's in the light. And I'm doing it in the light. In the sense of I'm acknowledging that this is who and what I am. And how do I live in this way in alignment with ultimate truth? Right? And so that's the thing, is like it's our addictions are always going to be a way of expressing something that we have been told our whole lives we're not allowed to express, we're not allowed to be, and we can't get rid of that part of ourselves. We can't actually not express it, so we express it through our addiction. However you become when you're drunk is the part of you, is the only way you know how to express being that, basically. However you become when you're high, whatever it is you do when you're shopping, whatever it is, it's letting out a part of yourself in the most shadowed, in the most incomplete way that you can right now. And so you're addicted to it because you are supposed to express in these ways, healthfully, in a far more complex way, in true reality. but this is the only way you're giving yourself permission to do it. So this is why we become addicted. So when we are looking at our addictions, the things that we go to that don't actually satisfy us, but we keep going back, we feel like we have no control, but we also feel like we do have control, we don't really want to let it go, and we think, I'm going to be this perfect person once I've recovered from this, and life is just going to be great, I'm going to be able to live my normal life that I'm supposed to live just without this addiction. The truth is, no, you're not. Right? The life that you're going to live sans addiction is the life where you have understood what you need, understood who you are, understood what you want, understood how the reality works, so you can get those needs and wants met, where you can express in your fullness to the degree that you understand it right now, regardless whether or not society believes in you or loves you or accepts you. That is what happens when we're not addicted anymore. When we really are truly meeting our actual needs, we don't need the addictive substance anymore, because that thing is now going to be a downgrade. So this is what I really want to get across, is we never need to fight with our addiction. And this is the thing that I think society is going to want to disagree with me on the most. Because again, we just think that this addiction is happening for no reason, or you're a bad person that you're addicted, or there's something wrong with you that you're addicted. No. You're supposed to be evolving. You're supposed to be changing. You have a specific life you know you're supposed to be living, that you're living out of alignment with right now. There's a bunch of things in the reality that you don't understand, that are making you less complex than you are supposed to be, than you are capable of being. You're trying to fit yourself into a life that you don't fit into, and thus you're always going to need a coping mechanism in order to live in that life. So if you're still addicted, no matter how much you've done to try and get over your addiction, it's because your needs are still not getting met. Your desire to express who and what you really are, you're not doing it because you don't know how. You've been told your whole life that if you did, it makes you evil. And so this is the best thing you have right now to make yourself feel better, to make yourself feel in control, to give yourself something to distract you and something to make you feel, again, this is the last thing that I really want to say about addiction, the need that addiction fills, is again, it gives us this sense of false hope that once and it gives us a distraction, right? Like, there's always a drama that goes along with an addiction. There's always a drama that goes along with an addiction. We never can just drink and overdrink and then just say it's fine. Or starve and it's just okay. And then I can just go to work tomorrow and it's fine. There's always this drama that goes along with it, right? This chaos that we're causing for other people, this chaos we're causing in our lives, this sabotage that our addiction causes us to do, right? So it sabotages our work, it sabotages our relationships, it sabotages all of these things. There's always this drama that goes along with it. And again, that drama serves a very important purpose. The first step that I always tell people when they're dealing with an addiction is to start to do your addictive habit, but don't make a drama out of it. And most people start to realize that when they don't flip out about the binge and flip out about the drinking, or they don't make it mean that they're a horrible person and what am I going to do to clean this up and what's my new plan and what's my new diet and what rehab center am I going to go, this whole drama, or blaming themselves for how much pain they've caused and oh my god, I can't believe I did this again and blah 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 blah. If you just did it and said, okay, I have a good reason for doing this, I don't understand what it is right now, but that's okay, I did it and it's okay, most people are going to have the most resistance to not making a drama out of it. Why? Because if you don't make a drama out of your addiction, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You can binge, you feel numb for the seconds that you're binging, and then when you don't let yourself go into, okay, what am I going to do to fix this, or oh my god, I can't believe I did this, and blah, 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 all of your negative emotions come up. Why? Because the behavior itself is not enough to shut it down. It's the behavior plus the drama that makes an addiction work. Yes? Because again, the addiction is pseudo meeting the need, and then the drama that we create after is the big distraction from actually figuring out what our need is, what our want is, what our true desire is, what we really want to do and be and expand into. Because if we were to become aware of that, we have to question our whole reality. And we don't want to do that. We want to stay in our addiction. You see? We really want it to be just as simple as, this addiction is the thing that's causing me pain. It's the thing that's making me cause other people pain. Once I get rid of this addiction, everything's going to be great. No, it's not. The addiction is the coping mechanism. It's not what's wrong with you. Yes? This is the big key to understand about addiction. The addiction is the coping mechanism. It's not what's wrong with you. What's wrong with you is that you don't know what you want, you don't know who you are, and you feel like the things that what you want and what you are you can't have because you don't understand the reality and you've never given yourself the capacity to learn, the opportunity to learn, and you have things that you are and that you want to be that you have been told your whole life you're not allowed to be, and so you're trying to get rid of that. That's why you have an addiction. That's why you suffer. The addiction is just on top. So when we don't make a drama out of our addiction, we can start to see, okay, what need is this addiction meeting? Who am I when I'm doing this behavior? When I don't make a drama out of it, what do I feel? What comes up? What do I want to be doing? What needs am I getting met here? What desires am I getting met here? What do I want to create that I'm telling myself that I can't create, and so I'm distracting myself with this? That is what we want to start to look at. This is the truth. You are addicted because you're meant to be more complex than you are. You're addicted because you have something you want to do and be that you've been told that you can't. And that is why recovery is so scary, because it means changing your entire life. But here's the thing. You'll never have to fight an addictive behavior when you start to understand this. When you start to let yourself do it without the drama, and you start to let yourself see what you really want and really need, where you're trying to create something you don't understand, and rather than making that mean reality has gone wrong and your thing is impossible and you can't have it, so you may as well just stay addicted, or you've got it figured out and just keep doing what you're doing and one day it's going to work. No, learn. Right? Open yourself. Okay, I don't know how to create what I want. I don't even know what I want sometimes. Let yourself be in the not knowing and all that uncomfortable emotion of the not knowing. Let yourself sit with all those comfortable, uncomfortable emotions that come up that you just need to process by feeling. All of this stuff. And you're going to wean yourself off your addiction by eventually becoming the person who can live the complex life you came to live. And then you won't need the thing anymore. I never conquered anorexia. I never got rid of her. I evolved myself to live a whole completely different life where I don't want to starve myself anymore. I have no desire to be killing myself that way anymore. Because I'm living a life that I want to be living. I know how to create what I want. I know who I am and how to be that. That's it. I'm healthy. Whether people want to agree with me or not, it doesn't really matter. I have the results. This is the thing. This is what addiction is. There's nothing wrong with you. You just need to become more complex. You need to realize that who and what you want to be, humanity is not going to agree with that, and that has to be okay. You're going to have to get strong enough to step into who and what you really are. Just one little thing at a time. And you don't have to fight your addiction. Just start to learn from it. Use it as a tool to understand what you want and what you need. What need is getting met here? What thing am I distracting myself from that I don't want to look at? What's really going on? How can you start to create those things in your life? One little step at a time. That's addiction. Okay? So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave those down below. Like, share, subscribe. There's nothing wrong with you. Reality is complex. We need to become more complex. That's it. That's all this is. Okay? I love you. You're amazing. There's nothing wrong with you. You're great. You're perfect. You're supposed to be who you are. I'm sorry that everyone told you that you shouldn't be who you are. That's incorrect. We need you to be who you are. The world's not going to like it, and that's okay. I like it, and as long as you like it. Okay? Yeah, leave your comments, concerns down below. I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, let me know if you like the personal stuff. And until the next video.